What is up, everybody, and welcome to CTW Postgame Show Live. I'm your host, Seamus Zarlingo. And tonight, folks, the Boston Celtics defeat the Philadelphia 76ers 109-108 in Philadelphia, as I cue the music there, or rather, take it away. But last night, really, because let's face it, folks, right now we're live and couple hours after the game, just a couple, but did happen last night. The Celtics faced the Philadelphia 76ers in game one of the 2025 NBA Cup, specifically for Group B, in which the Sixers and Celtics are involved in, along with the Pistons, Magic, and Brooklyn Nets right now. But the Celtics, they go down to Philadelphia. They avenge their opening night loss to the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers, they came into the Garden, defeated the Celtics 117-116. Now the Celtics, they go into the Wells Fargo Center down in Philadelphia and defeat the Philadelphia 76ers 109-108. So the Celtics give the 1 point punch right back to the Sixers for this one. However, this one matters maybe a little bit more for the Celtics winning by one than, say, the Sixers winning by one. Obviously, you want to win every single game, but the Celtics, their 1 point differential, right? The 1 point differential in this one will go to the Celtics' ultimate point differential for the entirety of the 2025 NBA Cup when all of those standings come due right before the NBA Cup tournament out in Las Vegas. However, the Celtics, this is still a regular season game for the Celtics, and I believe primarily these games are treated first as regular season games by each team in the league before the NBA Cup factors start coming into play, the point differential, the tournament, all of that hoopla. At the end of the day, or really the beginning of the day, if we want to say that, teams game planning for these events, they're going in there thinking this is a regular season game. And the Celtics, they certainly handled their business in this regular season game. Now improving to 3-3 on the season. The Celtics walked into the season 0-3. The first three games of the season, all losses for the Celtics. Since then, 3 straight wins for the season. Some pretty good wins at that. I mean, the Pelicans on the road, that one is at the end of a 3-game road trip. I know everybody's looking at the Pelicans without Zion Williamson going, well, we should have defeated the Pelicans that night. Well, the Celtics, they had to take care of business where they could have taken care of business. Wednesday, they defeat the Cleveland Cavaliers, who look nowhere near their standard right now. They were missing a bunch of guys in that one, but the Cavaliers, they fall to the Celtics and fall pretty hard as well. The Celtics won that game by 20. And then on Friday, of course, on Halloween, the Celtics come out in Philadelphia and pick up a road win in the NBA Cup, and a very important road win in the NBA Cup, especially against a division opponent in the Sixers. But the Celtics, I would say, initial thoughts on this one, right? We always give out initial thoughts on this program. Initial thoughts on this one simply would be, first, the Celtics looked a lot better in this game than they did opening night against the Sixers, right? Against the Sixers on opening night, we're sitting there going, the Celtics and the Sixers, they might be on the same level. I mean, you think 1 point game, even this game, you could say, okay, well, the Celtics and the Sixers, they're still only separated by 1 point. They still might be on the same level. But at the same time, we do look at some of the advantages in which the Celtics held in this game, particularly the field goal attempts, right? The field goal attempts, the Celtics dominated in that category tonight. And that's always a category you want to dominate. You want to dominate all the hustle categories, but simply taking more shots than the other team, that's valuable to a team. And tonight, the Celtics, this is a game where you look at the score on the bottom and go, how is it this close considering the field goal attempt discrepancy? Tonight, the Celtics shot 101 field goal attempts to the Sixers 78. So the Celtics taking 23 more field goal attempts than the Sixers. The Sixers shooting it at a little bit higher of a rate. The real story here, how the Sixers were able to make it a 1 point affair at the end of the night, the free throw discrepancy. The Celtics were 7 of 12 from the line at the end of the night, whereas the Sixers, they were 21 of 29. And you're thinking, if you're the Sixers, those 8 missed free throws in there. The Sixers shoot 72% from the line. I mean, the Celtics, they shoot 58%, but a much lower volume. The Sixers missed 8 free throws from the line in a 1 point game. that can be all the difference in basketball. It's all the little margins, right? It's all the little margins. That's why you try to win every category as humanly possible when you're out there on a basketball court. And the Celtics, the field goal attempt discrepancy was the biggest factor in this game overall. And it was due to the Celtics really forcing turnovers, taking care of the ball themselves tonight. The Celtics forced 18 turnovers. I keep saying tonight, but we all know it was a couple hours ago, maybe a couple, just a little bit down the timeline of the past. But the Celtics in the turnover margin, they won that outright, and that led to the field goal attempt discrepancy. And that's where the Celtics really won this game, is taking all of those extra attempts. And as we look at, if we transition over to the lead tracker tonight, if we look at the lead tracker, we can tell the Celtics, this is why it was a much better game, right? I mentioned it was a much better game tonight for the C's than it was on Wednesday on opening night. This is why. Here's the lead tracker right here. The Celtics, the biggest lead of the night, 24. The Sixers never led in this game. There were 0 lead changes. It was tied once at the beginning of the game. And see, right there in the middle, the Sixers were able to tie it up, but never take the lead. So a sheer wire-to-wire win for the Celtics, even though it looked a little rocky at times, no doubt. And certainly so, the Sixers, they owned a chance there at the end of the game to take the lead. Imagine if Tyrese Maxey makes that running floater, the Sixers take the lead with about a second or two left on the clock. That would have been their only lead of the game. That would have been a gut-wrenching loss for the Celtics. Unfortunately for the Sixers, unfortunately for the Celtics, it did not happen in that way. However, looking at this lead tracker, the Celtics certainly asserted their dominance in certain parts of this game. And I want to make clear a couple of concerns within this lead tracker, okay? Number one, the dip all the way down to the bottom where it's tied. The Celtics go up by 24. And you notice really a quarter later, because that 24-point lead is in the middle of the second quarter. A quarter later, essentially, in the middle of the third quarter, that lead is gone. That 24-point lead is all the way down to 0. And you notice the lead wasn't exactly retained before half, right? Because you're looking at the 24-point lead here for the Celtics. That chart goes down right before half, and pretty steadily, pretty gradually, and pretty definitively as well. And it continues into the second half. What we really want to see out of the Celtics is that progression within this chart going upward towards half, and then even after half, it going up again, or at least stabilizing. This is a little concerning, where you see it going down before half and after half, which means the Celtics went to the locker room, made adjustments, and those adjustments didn't quite pan out the way they wanted to start the half. And you either want to, you want to do both, right? You want to finish a half off good, a quarter off good, and you want to start a quarter and a half off good, but you want to do one or the other, right? If you finish the half like the Celtics did here, you want to start the third quarter off right. It's not what the Celtics did. And even if there's a little bit of a lull at the beginning of the third quarter, you want to ultimately be going into halftime with a little bit more of a cushion. And the Celtics, just all the wrong moments, really. The chart is going down here. Although it's a sea of green, don't get me wrong, 100% sea of green, there are moments within this chart where you look at it and go, this was not the best moment of execution for the Celtics, primarily right before half, right after half, right where the game's tied there. You like to see the resiliency of the Celtics, the chart going back up after the game was tied. But right there at the end of the game, the Sixers, and they nearly won this game at the end and even owned a chance on the last possession. But at the end of that chart, the Celtics really let go of the rope once again, and couldn't really get it going until halfway through the first quarter. We enjoy seeing the Celtics, that first quarter margin uptick like that, but throughout the rest of the game, that lead tracker is a little inconsistent with what's going on and how the Celtics were managing the game. And I think that's really going to be a theme of the Celtics team this year. The Celtics are a team that don't really fit together, right? There's talent there, but the team doesn't fit. There are certain lineups where offense meets defense and vice versa. Joe Mazzulla owns the ability to throw out complete defensive lineups. He owns the ability to throw out complete offensive lineups, but he doesn't own the ability to mix and match all the versatility into a lineup that makes sense. Because if you're matching the defense with the offense, if you're matching the defense with the offense, the defense with the offense, there's a trade-off. There are some players who are going to be weak links on the defensive end of the floor. And then on the other end of the floor, if you're trading that offense with that defense, or rather the offense. The first example I gave was what? Offense for defense, vice versa. You guys know what I'm talking about here. The Celtics essentially on one end of the floor, they are going and putting in offensive players, right? Okay, Anthony Simons, Peyton Pritchard. We know those guys can produce offensively. But then there's a trade-off defensively there. Those guys aren't as great of defenders. They're going to be weak links on the defensive end of the floor. The versatility is not there at the highest of level. Then you go on the other end, right? Get to some players like Hugo Gonzalez and Josh Minott. Josh Minott, give him credit. He's been a nice all-around player this year. But say a player like Hugo Gonzalez, or even Baylor Shireman right now, some of the two young guys, two Celtics draft picks. Those two players in particular, they're really great defenders. All right, I'll give them that. Hugo Gonzalez, we see his energy out there. Great defender, great defensive box plus minus so far for Hugo Gonzalez. Doing well. But it's on the other end of the floor offensively. Once you put those guys out there, they're minimized on the offensive end of the floor because of their capabilities, because of their standing in the league, because of their really where their place is within the hierarchical structure of the Celtics rotation. And that's where Joe Mazzulla is finding a little bit of trouble at times, mixing and matching lineups throughout a game that makes sense. With the old team, right? With the championship Celtics, Joe Mazzulla, at all times there was versatility on the court, especially with a player like Jason Tatum, right? A player like Jason Tatum changes everything. When you have a player like him that you can just slot in for nearly 40 minutes a night, which not during the regular season, during the playoffs more so, but you're saying during the regular season, maybe 30, 35 minutes a night, the ability to mix and match lineups goes up, right? Because mixing and matching players alongside a player as versatile as Jason Tatum is a lot easier than as we have somebody entering the studio. I cannot configure why StreamYard does this every single time, but it does. So bear with us, folks. Bear with us. But StreamYard, come on now, folks. Come on. Nobody came into the studio. What's going on here? StreamYard just bugging today? All right. We're gonna keep going with this, folks. Solo show. Solo show, I gotta say, it's a lot harder to keep going, right? Done a lot of these in the past, but gotta be for real, talking for a straight hour, talking for straight 2 hours. It's tough. Tough. Okay, here we go. Come on. I knew somebody was in here. Let's add. We don't have to add him via the phone today as we welcome in Mr. Nick Franco. Welcome, Franco. Welcome.
Welcome. Hold on. Are we
Testing 1 2.
sounding good? Testing. Mic check. Mic check. Hey, 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 hey.
It sounds like
Now
it
we
sounds
should.
pretty good. It sounds there's
All
no
right.
there's
Now we
no there's no static. Okay, so no static, no problem. That's what I think, right? But
Yep.
you came at the perfect time. Initial thoughts. I feel like I'm kind of wrapping up the initial thoughts segment. I'm trying to elongate myself, and I feel like I'm a little boring right now because I'm elongating on a bunch of vague conceptual concepts. But since we have somebody else in here, Franco, take it over.
Oh,
Initial thoughts on this one.
well, happy belated Halloween, everyone. This is the Halloween episode, and this game against the 76ers opening up the play-in tournament. And
The NBA Cup,
no, NBA Cup.
formerly the in-season
Why
tournament.
not? Well, we have to get that out of the way immediately. That always happens at the beginning of the season. Play-in tournament to NBA Cup, two different tournaments, but the two completely different things. The NBA Cup kicked off, and the Celtics were able to beat the Philadelphia 76ers 109 to 108. Came down to the wire. Came down to a final shot by Joel Embiid, which was probably not a well drawn up play by the 76ers, and having the ball in Joel Embiid's hands, especially behind the 3-point line when you only are down by 1 point. I mean, Nick Nurse, what are we drawing up over here? I don't know what type of play call that was, but the Celtics were able to stand out. Jaylen Brown had a strong performance once again. It really starting to begin to establish himself And the Celtics are now back to even as we head into our game tonight with the Houston Rockets. The Celtics are now 3-3. So right now it's a almost even schedule heading forward, and this is the line that the Celtics need to balance on, and being able to answer back when facing adversity, which the Celtics are going to face plenty of this season. It's going to be, if they are on a skid, how are they going to answer back? It's going to be now back to a game to game basis, but these stretches are going to start to really matter. And hopefully, the Celtics are able to build upon the past stretch that they've faced in the past few games.
Okay, so I'm looking at the play. The reason, folks, I'm looking down right now, I'm looking at the play the Sixers drew up for Joel Embiid at the end of the game. And I'm not certain that this was for Joel Embiid, but it also begs the question of why wouldn't you draw up a play for your all NBA former MVP big man somewhere down in the post with 3 seconds left. Okay, there was 3.2 seconds left on the clock. And how this play starts, I'm going to try to walk us through this verbally, and we might show a little bit on screen here, but you know how we did. I don't know if anybody was in here last time when we tried to do this breakdown, but how this all works out is so the Sixers start at the top of the. So they start at the top of the key here. As I'm watching, wait, hold up. I got to watch Josh Minot miss his last free throw again, unfortunately. But the Sixers, they start at the top of the key. And hold up. We're doing this on YouTube, folks. We got to get this let's do this a little more cleanly. Let's do this a little more cleanly. We'll get the
We'll get some.
We'll have this for you guys in a second here.
Yeah.
We got to get to the actual play. Okay. Start at the top of the key. Really, everything goes awry for the Sixers as I'm really okay. We got it. Had to screen record it so I could actually pause it, folks. Maybe I shouldn't say that on the broadcast, though, right? We're not no screen recording here, Adam Silver. We have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know. That
Nope.
didn't. Nope.
Copyright. Never heard of her.
Nope. Not showing it on here. Okay. So now that we finally have the play, so I can break this down. Okay, so the Sixers, they kind of line up in this weird, not football formation, but they have essentially 4 guys across the court. So you have the inbounder in, let's see, who's inbounding the ball here? Not sure who's inbounding the ball, but you have the inbounder, and then on court, you have Maxey coming away from the right corner. So the far corner, if you're looking at it, the far corner of the court. Maxey comes off and sets a screen for Joel Embiid, who cuts to the wing. Maxey goes and tries to get the ball. The Celtics, Tillman goes under the screen, right? So the screen's not even really right now. It's like the Sixers are trying to send all this confusing action and really doesn't get the Celtics because the Celtics do a tremendous job at letting Tillman go under the screen. Minot forces the screen away from Tillman. So Tillman's on Embiid, and then Minot, he runs into a screen of his own and he switches on to Edgecombe. Jaylen Brown pops out, gives his body to Maxey. So right here, I'm just going to shout out Josh Minot and Jaylen Brown right now. Both of these players on this play, super physical, okay? Super physical. And it may be in a little ticky-tack game that would have been called for fouls off ball, which would have been horrible. But in this spot, I think you got to let the play develop. You don't call a whistle right here. But both players very physical and switching and not allowing the screens to take place how they were supposed to. In my mind, what's supposed to happen here is Brown. What the Sixers wanted was you have Derek White on the inbounder. What the Sixers wanted is you have Maxey coming off a screen at the top of the key. When you have Maxey coming off a screen at the top of the key, what you want is Edgecombe to really hold up Brown and Minot because Minot's on Maxey, Brown's on Edgecombe, and what Edgecombe really wants to do is hold up Brown and Minot as one guy. And this is where you go, well, maybe that should have been ran as a big, right? A big should have been utilized in this particular spot. A big should have been utilized. Instead, it is Edgecombe. Edgecombe only clips Minot. Brown is super aggressive at getting out on that switch, knocks Maxey off of his spot entirely. And what's supposed to happen here is really Maxey's supposed to come off this screen and Brown and Minot's supposed to be held up and Maxey's supposed to get the ball. And what I'm thinking is going to happen here is if he slips in front of Derek White, he has a wide open lane towards the rim. He gets the ball. If he's cutting towards the rim, that's wide open lane. That could be a wide open layup with a minimal contest. Instead, the Sixers have a backup option on this play when Maxi's completely shut off. Grimes comes from all the way down court. Okay, Grimes is just sitting there down court. Pritchard is waiting there playing safety. Grimes gets the ball. Pritchard is waiting for him, cuts him off nicely. Brown cuts off the passing lane to Maxi at the last second. Grimes can't make that pass. Grimes makes a last second pass to Embiid, who's standing on the perimeter, who actually, if you look at it, did not get the shot off in time. I'm not sure if they counted this or not, but Embiid does not get the shot off in time according to this replay whatsoever. And I got to say, this play call, I understand where it was going. Okay, like when I look at it, I go, this is what they wanted was Maxi to come off two. They wanted Maxi to set a screen, then for him to jut off that screen to go set another screen, essentially, or rather to set a screen, to jet off that screen, to go run around another screen, to get the ball, to go and loop himself back towards the rim. I hope I'm explaining that. And I probably could use better terms here, but
it was the best play-by-play we can give you. We're
without,
giving you the radio-style breakdown.
Without running a criminal organization here, this is the best kind of verbal breakdown we can give you guys. But that's essentially what happened. I mean, Maxi's coming from that far corner. He's setting the screen for Embiid. Embiid's popping off that screen to the, and that's another confusing thing is maybe in that situation, if I go back and look at this play real quick, I kind of wonder if, and this is almost like a read along for people, right? It's like everybody open your books to chapter 2 on this one. The last play, go to NBA highlights on YouTube and go all the way to the end. But the last play, I just wonder, Maxi sets this for Embiid. I mean, if this is set properly, in my mind, you could have an Embiid roll to the rim and almost a wide open lob, or like
right.
You'd almost have Embiid. If the Sixers ran this differently, you could have maybe seen an Embiid switch on to Minot, and then all of a sudden you have Tillman on Maxi. And that's also something you're probably thinking the Sixers try to do first is get that switch onto Tillman, right? Put Maxi on Tillman, or rather put Tillman on Maxi, because in that situation, I mean, speed versus speed, right? Tillman, he has bricks for feet. Maxi, I mean, he's got turbo for feet, or turbo jets, right, rather. And in that situation, you're thinking, okay, the Sixers are probably trying. The Celtics, that's where one has to give them credit. The Celtics did a tremendous job on that last possession defensively of not allowing the Sixers to get exactly what they wanted to get. And that's a huge theme of any defense in the NBA, is not allowing a team to just dictate and do whatever they want to do. That was the huge thing with the Celtics the last couple of years is, well, you have Porzingis and Tatum, and they basically just get whatever they want to get. They, with whatever mismatch they see out on the floor, if they get that mismatch, they're getting what they want to get ultimately. And that last play, the Sixers just never got what they wanted to get, and it wound up in a Joel Embiid deep three that really didn't, from this replay, didn't get it off in time. That would not have counted even if he actually made that shot. But you mentioned it came down to that last possession, but I really think it came down to the possession beforehand when Maxi had the chance to win it with the floater before Minot goes and misses 2 free throws. But we saw the end of that game, very helter-skelter for the Celtics after we looked at the lead tracker earlier and noticed the lead tracker, a lot of green on there for the C's, a lot of dominance throughout the game, but a lot of lulls in there, including the end of that fourth quarter. So, Franco, my question to you here, and just for, I almost said the panel, us here on the panel, I got good guys over here. I don't know. But what exactly within the line of inconsistency, right? Within the conversation of inconsistency, what exactly caused the inconsistency for the Celtics in this game? And particularly at the end of the game where the Sixers actually hopped back in this game and nearly won it.
Rotations. I mean, it's the mismatching and the in and out rotations that the Boston Celtics are playing with. There is not a consistent core group of players out on the court for the Celtics sit on a consistent basis. And once you start to see those alterations happen, that's when those mismatches are starting to form against opponents who have players who are able to take advantage of a shift in momentum. You look at what the 76ers did to get themselves back in the game, and it's been pretty prominent in the past few games for the Boston Celtics, is they will maintain that lead, and then once it either Anthony Simons or a Jaylen Brown gets switched out, there's not someone there to replicate the type of offensive efficiency. And you also are seeing that these guys still haven't been on the court as long as they need to together. And you're you still see some chemistry lapses in some rotations between either when Sam Hauser comes in for a Chris Boucher, there are no two guys on the Celtics have played together as much as they should have, and also like when getting that formality with a team that doesn't have an identity, it's challenging. And the 76ers have talented players, and talented players create possessions and create momentum, and they were able to get on a run, but the Celtics during those final few minutes were able to maintain the lead, were able to get a few good looks from there was a good look from Minot at the end of the game. There was a couple of plays by Anthony Simons during those last possessions, and just being able to also capitalize on other teams' mistakes. That was kind of the game yesterday, was each team were capitalizing on miscues by the other one, and it was nowhere close to a perfect game by either team, and I think both teams still have a lot of development to go through, but it's just a matter of being able to get results within those 48 minutes that they were playing, and the Celtics were able to pull away with it.
And which team right now, you mentioned both of these teams. This is always an interesting question to me. Which team do you see with a more optimistic path right now? Right when you're saying, I mean,
Path or
it's
future?
easy to say, right? Once Tatum comes back, oh, the Celtics, they'll be in championship contention once again. But we are watching the Sixers with a healthy Embiid, right? A healthy Embiid, and that's the big part here, is he's actually available right now. Paul George is still out there. I want to it sounds stupid because it almost sounds as if I'm giving the Sixers another chance, right? Where it's like maybe, right? It's like they were done last year, right? But we're going, maybe. But Paul George, I do want to point out, he's not a nothing player. Okay, he'll come back. He's not worth 50 million, don't get me wrong. But he's not a nothing player. He's coming back. The Sixers will be at full strength. Still see this team somewhere in the mid tier, but just outlook for the rest of this season, right? This season, which team do you see with a better outlook moving forward? Because after these two games, the point differential, played 8 quarters of basketball, it's 0.
I think both teams are in a unique position because the Boston Celtics, as we all know, are without their best player, number 0, Jason Tatum. And the Philadelphia 76ers are almost, it seems like, rehabbing and almost getting Joel Embiid's feet back under him and getting him back acclimated into playing alongside this roster and also adding to this roster. It seems like both of these teams, to tie back to my first point, in like seeing miscues and also seeing guys that really haven't formed a haven't had as many minutes as they should on the court together. I think that both teams are both in the same position, and I think they're starting to get accustomed to each other. And I think both these teams are almost a move away. The 76ers, the process is still happening. And honestly, the process is going a little bit better than it was supposed to be during this offseason when they got a very lucky roll of the lottery and were able to um, add VJ Edgecombe to this team. And he's proven to be a valuable player to this team. And Jared McCain will also be back at some point. I mean, the injury reports aren't very good about him, but either mid-season or whenever he returns, that's another young player to add to this roster. So guard-wise, they're looking great. And then we bring up Paul George. Paul George's contract is I could see that being a potentially utilized to add another star to Philadelphia and moving him and also maybe moving one of these other younger players alongside Paul George for a more esteemed player to play next to Embiid, potentially a taller, probably a wing or a center, someone who can play on the court alongside Embiid while taking the burden and responsibilities of being the number one big man on the court and kind of lay off that responsibility for him. But I could see the Philadelphia 76ers continuing to be aggressive. And if there is a season that they can bank in on, it is this season, because we've seen that the Eastern Conference has been a very open book for the first 6 games, and we're seeing a few surprising teams that we weren't expecting, and we're also seeing some teams not performing up to expectations. So the East is still open game for anyone in the East, and I think the Philadelphia 76ers found themselves in a very strong position that they possibly weren't expecting them to. So I think that they could have I think that they could potentially be back into the conversation of being one of those teams that are talked about in the Eastern Conference when it comes down to New York, Boston when they're fully healthy. Indy and teams of that sort, but there's still a few question marks on their roster, and I feel like that's going to remain, but there's definitely some things that they can upgrade, but I see them being maybe a round 2 team, and who knows if the roster continues to look the way it has, they could find themselves in a solid position to make a chance to contend for in the Eastern Conference Finals or something of that sort.
You mentioned the Eastern Conference in total. The standings right now, the Sixers are at 2. I mean, they're at 4-1. The Celtics handed the Sixers their first loss of the season straight up tonight. Or rather, yeah, a couple hours ago.
Chicago Bulls are undefeated, I
5 and
believe.
0. The only undefeated teams right now in the NBA. The Chicago Bulls, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Folks, it's 2012 all over again. I mean, you look at the football, you look at the standings in football, you got the Colts, you have the Patriots right now, the Broncos doing well. Like, okay, well, they're 2012, but 2013 again. Same thing with the NBA standings, although the Sixers were decent in 2012. They were the 8th seed that year. I'm
What
not
was that?
mistaken.
The Andre Iguodala?
That was the year. Okay, so 2012, I believe that was the year the Celtics. Yeah, they made the Eastern Conference Finals that year, lost in 7 to the Heat. But the reason the Celtics made the Eastern Conference Finals that season was because Derrick Rose in the first round tore his ACL against the Sixers, setting up a Sixers Celtics second round series in which the Celtics, I believe that might have gone 7, if I'm not mistaken, a long time ago, 13 years ago. And then
We
eventually the
were 10
Celtics went
at the
on.
time.
Well, I mean, right, yeah, we were pretty young, but I remember my family, it was family barbecue, everybody was over and Celtics game was on TV, and this was before, I've converted my entire family to Celtics fans, just so everybody knows. This was before it was a thing. Like, okay, the Celtics are on. Okay, they're gonna be on over here. It's like, no, they were just randomly on TNT, and that was a that's always a nice memory I look back at. But back then, the standings looked a little bit like this, just a little bit. And I do look at the Sixers record right now, 4-1, and small sample size. Okay, very small sample size. Right now, the only couple teams there are a couple teams where you're going, okay, they're really showing themselves right now. Say the Pelicans 0-5, the Thunder 6-0, the Spurs 5-0, right? Those are teams you're already going, okay, we know the Pelicans are bad. We know the Thunder are going to be good. We think the Spurs are going to be a lot better because now they have essentially the next LeBron, Jokic, Wimby. Well, they have Wimby. The next LeBron, Jokic, Giannis on their team. I replaced Wimby with Giannis. See how that works? I mean, that's what's literally happening in San Antonio. But out west, I mean, those two teams at the top, and then the East. But that's where the East. If I'm looking at the standings out there, out east. Well, the Sixers, they're in second right now. There are no other teams out east outside of the bottom, right? The only team that I believe is indicative right now, their record is indicative of who they are. It's the Brooklyn Nets. 0-5. It's like, okay,
Oh yeah,
0-5. They might be 0-82. Who knows? I mean, likely not going to happen, but the Nets are that bad this season. They might have how many wins at the end of the year? I mean,
possibly the
somewhere over
worst
10.
constructed roster that I have ever seen. In all honesty.
We could get on. I don't want to get too far down on the Nets, but the answer Michael Porter Jr. gave the other day when asked what exactly the team was struggling with, absolutely ridiculous. But not going to get into that one because that's the only team in the Eastern Conference I believe right now shows who they are. Right, they're 0-5, and we think okay, their over under win total was 20.5. I'm not. Whoever took the over on the 20.5 for the Nets probably not feeling all that great right now. But the rest of the East, the Bulls are 5-0. We're thinking, okay, that's going to fall down a little bit. We know the Bulls are not that team. They could be better, but they're not going to be the top of the East. The Sixers, they're a team that actually thinks they should be atop the East. And last year at this time, I just want to point out the Sixers didn't win 4 games until almost December last year. It's November 1st, and they have 4 wins already. Again, small sample size, but much better start to this season. And then to go further on down the line, there's not much competition in the East. You have the Bulls, the Bucks, the Heat, the Pistons, the Celtics, Cavs, and Hawks right now as the top 8 seeds. The Knicks are still 2-3 down there. The Magic are still 2-4. They're doing a lot worse than we all thought. The other teams are not world beaters whatsoever. You got the Heat and the Bulls unexpectedly up there. You could say maybe the Sixers unexpectedly, but that's kind of the point here is the Sixers with Paul George and Joel Embiid last season. A lot of people were expecting that roster to be a potential top 3, top 4 seed in the East, especially amidst a weak East. That season went awry right off the bat. Joel Embiid never really came back fully healthy. Paul George was never fully back healthy, except for that, of course, one Christmas game against the Celtics somehow. I don't know how they managed to just rejuvenate themselves for that one and beat the Celtics. But
The national television hit him with some serum and got him back out on the court.
that Disney money, that Disney money. Like, oh, ABC, okay, I'll be out there. I'll just wrap up my knee, just icy hot, just a little bit of that on there. But the Sixers, this is the whole point. They expected to be at the top of the East last year. This season, they're 4-1. They're technically not even fully healthy yet. They could add 2 rotation players by the end of the year, and Paul George and Jared McCain. And if Joel Embiid is still healthy, and the way they're playing Joel Embiid right now, I would say, I mean, they're very much giving him the lowest. They're giving him the lowest amount of responsibility possible in my mind. From the 2 games we saw Joel Embiid, the Sixers are sitting there going, okay, we want this guy healthy and we want this guy at his best in April. Right now, yes, he has to play because we have to win games right now. We saw how that went last year, but we're still going to try to lower the amount of responsibility on Joel Embiid. We're not going to send him near the rim. We're not going to give him as many opportunities. We're going to send more opportunities to Maxey and Edgecombe, right? The Sixers are operating in that way. I hate to glaze the Sixers. I don't feel like that's necessarily what I'm doing right now, but just want to point out that this team is 4-1 and they're at the top of these standings, and there's not many signs other than the small sample size and not beating great teams to this point. The Sixers opponents haven't been the most impressive bunch of teams, but you play who you play. 4-1, small sample size. That said, the Sixers, is it possible they're a top 3, top 4 seed at the end of the year? And is it also possible the Celtics, who just beat the Sixers, are up there as well? I mean, the Celtics, they're starting to play a lot better. They started 0-3. Now they're 3-3. And a huge contributing factor to that has been Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown this season, not the most efficient player, specifically with the turnovers and some of the defensive box plus minus stats, but overall, Jaylen Brown, the advanced numbers were there. An MVP season is not out of the realm of possibility, or at least I don't want to say an MVP season, but can Jaylen Brown put himself into the MVP conversation? This game against the Sixers, 32 points, 13 of 19 from the floor, 4 of 7 from three rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. But this is what gets Jaylen Brown every time. This is where I mentioned the advanced numbers. 5 turnovers in this one. 5. If you can just get those turnover numbers down, and on the defensive end of the floor, become more of a, I don't want to say more of a factor because Jaylen Brown is a factor on that end, but more of a dominant factor, right? When Jaylen Brown's on the floor, the Celtics are that great on defense. The MVP award isn't too far out of the realm of possibilities given Jaylen Brown's stat lines up to this point. However, looking at this performance from Jaylen Brown tonight, what exactly did Jaylen Brown do well in his 32-point performance against the Sixers?
I think that it's just a more well-rounded approach to Jaylen Brown's game of being able to be one who's wearing multiple hats, taking on the responsibilities of being that number one guy on the Boston Celtics right now. Obviously, the turnovers are something that aren't something that shouldn't be expected. We should Jaylen Brown has never been one who has always been the most what's the best word for it? Uh, shoot, conservative with the ball. He's been someone who's been on more of a primary score, more of a downhill attack, more of not one who's really a playmaker and setting up these types of situations. But I think that he has been just a good, strong leader and a good basis for this team to revolve around. I mean, looking at getting Simons involved and Pritchard, those are this team's ball handlers. Also, if you want to include Derek White in the conversation, you can, but Derek White's role is a little bit different as we've delved into in other post-game shows. But with the guards, they need to be the ones setting up Jaylen Brown, and Jaylen Brown needs to be putting himself in the correct positions. But he is always a consistent energy source for the Boston Celtics, and that was seen to be able to happen tonight or
Jaylen
last
Brown.
night.
I know. It's whoa. Don't give the people watching in 2026 will not know. I'm just saying. We won't know in 2026. It's like happy Halloween. It's like okay. So it's like a couple hours
we're
ago.
live.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. But Jaylen Brown, what I love about Jaylen Brown right now is his aggression. Okay, he is 100% willing and capable of taking over that number one option role on the Celtics team. Now, will it be as efficient as Jason Tatum? No. But it will still be something from the standpoint of Jaylen Brown diving into the pool and doing whatever is necessary in order for the Celtics to win games, particularly on the offensive end of the floor, because offensively, Jaylen Brown, the turnovers are the biggest issue right now. The dribbling into nowhere, throwing it out of bounds, throwing it here. And it's the dribbling into guys and guys swiping at the ball and the ball coming loose, right? When you're driving as an NBA player, just as a basketball player in general, you want full control over the ball. That's what makes, say, a player like Kyrie Irving so great, is that his ability to keep that ball on a string. I mean, it literally looks like while he's dribbling a basketball, that thing is coming back to him on a string. It's about the control of the ball. Jaylen Brown, when he's driving, he often loses control of the ball. That is just a staple of his game at this point. I don't
Death
know what else can be
taxes
said.
and Jaylen Brown not being able to dribble.
But my thing is, I don't understand how this doesn't, like, how does this keep happening? Right? Because
Well,
it's
I
one
know
of
what
those
it
things
is.
I want to hone in and say, look at his efficient shooting, right? Because he's making his deep balls. He's making shots around the rim. He's making his mid-range shots. He is an efficient shooter this season. He's making everything. I mean, 13 of 19, that's a great shooting line. But the turnovers, and the assist line too. 6 assists, that's great.
He
But when you have
plays
5
very
turnovers,
rushed.
that
He
negates the assists.
he plays incredibly, incredibly rushed. And why I come up with that diagnosis is because and analysis is because that's what I remember when I see Jaylen Brown making these errors and having these mental lapses. It seems like he's almost playing the game faster than he needs to. When Jaylen Brown is playing at a controlled, slowed down pace and the offense is almost in a flow state, Jaylen Brown is one who is very capable of falling into the tempo of the Celtics offense when it's flowing, and he's also one who can ignite that as well. But in these close, tough situations, he's not really always the best one to make the best decisions with the ball in his hands, and also will try to tighten up the cape a little bit more and try to be the hero of the situation when he doesn't need to be. There's a lot of unforced situations that he'll put himself into. He'll run into traps, and teams understand that and will almost bait him into situations where they are forcing him to make a split-second decision on whether he wants to kick it out or if he wants to put up the shot himself. And usually by the time he comes up with the decision, the split second's already gone.
Yeah, that for me, every time he drives the ball and stops, it's like if there's not a definitive lane, right, for him to take, and he's driving and he stops almost near the free throw line and he gets trapped. I mean, every time I see that, turnover, turnover. And sometimes it doesn't result in a turnover, but it results in the ball getting popped up into the air. Jalen's going up and
Frozen.
grabbing it
It
or
gets
corralling
frozen.
it. And
It's
even
always just very panicked and
right,
finicky.
and even those moments don't result in turnovers sometimes, which most of the time they do, right? 5 turnovers are very exemplatory of that one. But even when they don't result in turnovers, they result in an awry offensive possession in which results in a bad shot for the Celtics offense, which then leads to a bad shooting number, which then leads to less points on the board, which then leads to more losses. And see how that all connects, folks? Like, I mean, that's how it goes, right? Even the numbers that was the whole Marcus Smart thing for years, right? Where the numbers didn't always show up on the board or on the stat sheet, but they mattered on court. When you're a disruptor on the defensive end of the floor, you might not come up with a bunch of steals and blocks and
I,
all these great numbers. But if you're a passing lane disruptor and you're always in a guy's grill and you're making an offensive possession more uncomfortable for the offensive team or the team on offense, your opponent on offense, that's going to affect a game in its entirety. And
I
the
thought you were
conversation
talking
here is
about the
unfortunately now with Marcus Smart, it's about
Cons.
Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I thought you were when you bring up Marcus Smart's name, thought you were going to be talking about him on the offensive end because this is a not to
Well,
be
he's another
too
one you could say as
critical.
well.
Like I don't want to be too critical, but Jaylen Brown's performances, he is a much very talented on the offensive end, much more talented scorer than Marcus Smart is, much more consistent, much more versatile on the offensive end. But there's almost that Marcus Smart type of almost intensity, but almost just rushed and hurriedness to Jaylen Brown's game that will ends up causing these turnovers. And that was one of the main issues that we ran into with Marcus Smart and why he wasn't one that we could bank on being the number one point guard and being the true point guard to lead this offense.
And that's also what partially follows Jaylen Brown within his journey as the number one option. I believe he's very capable of filling the void of Tatum, but at the same time, there are going to be deficits in his game that doesn't make him a Jokic, a Giannis, a Tatum at the end of the day, but it still makes him a very good player who's playing within the Celtics offense. However, the Celtics offense, coming off this little mini road trip to Philadelphia, the Celtics are coming back home to face the Houston Rockets tonight, tomorrow, whatever we want to say for this
No,
broadcast.
we'll
In a little
say
bit here.
Well, I
Hey,
know
these
what,
two
we're
games,
live.
this
We
is back to
got-
back. These are hours apart.
Yeah, we got live viewers, you know. We got people that entertain live, so wanna know what the game that's happening in 12 minutes. 12 minutes for us.
We got 22. We got good 22.
22 commercials, yeah, and yeah, the presentations and all that.
Right.
Yeah,
The broadcast. That's every time they say, "Oh, this game's at 7 o'clock." The broadcast starts at 7 for like where they bring the broadcast into from the pregame show into the arena. That's the time of that, and then tip off is usually 10 minutes, sometimes 15. TNT used to be loosey goosey. Somebody had the chart of when the average start time was for every single network provider, and every network, NBC, ESPN, FanDuel, they were all 10 minutes after tip, 10 minutes. TNT, I mean, they were like 17. I mean, they were all over the place. TNT's not around anymore. Amazon still trying to get the rhythm for that, because Amazon, broadcasting this one on that Halloween Friday night. But Amazon will not be a part of this next game in which the Celtics play against the Houston Rockets as the Celtics travel back to the Garden to face a new look Houston Rocket team with Ime Udoka. Every time the Rockets come through, Ime Udoka. This time Ime Udoka has Kevin Durant on his team. Once again, the last time this happened was when the Nets came to town in 2022. Ime Udoka was an assistant coach there. And then, of course, Kevin Durant was a player on the Brooklyn Nets back then. I will say tonight, though, looking at the injury report, just to let's square away the injury report real quick, because this always matters when it comes to back-to-backs. A couple players were on the injury report coming into today for the Celtics specifically.
I think they're all available today for the Celtics. I believe other than Tatum, we're going to have a full squad, and for the Houston Rockets, where they are missing Fred VanVleet, as we found out before the season began. He was unfortunately injured, had a season-ending injury before the season began, which is completely unfortunate. Was looking forward to seeing what he was capable with this offense, and another key rotational player for them, Dorian Finney-Smith.
So the Rockets, no Finney-Smith, no VanVleet, but those are long-term injuries, so we already knew those. So nobody else on the injury report for the Rockets, but the big update here is the Celtics. Obviously, Tatum out, another long-term injury. Peyton Pritchard, he was probable, I believe, coming in. He was probable. And so, there's levels to this. There's probable, questionable, doubtful, right? Players kind of shift between the three. Probable means, yeah, they're injured, but they're definitely on the line of playing. Questionable is 50-50, and doubtful is on the other side of it. It's literally like the bell curve of 50-50, right? Probable is 75%, questionable is 50-50, and doubtful is 25%. Just to give a vague example there. But Peyton Pritchard, he is available tonight after appearing on the injury report with a left ankle sprain. And then Derek White, a bilateral neck, just says bilateral neck / stiffness. He was on the injury report as probable. He will be available tonight. So pretty much two fully stocked rosters for the most part, aside from the long-term injuries of both teams. Tonight's game between the Rockets and the Celtics, this is a good measuring stick for both teams. Last year, you could kind of feel this was a matchup last year. The Celtics and Rockets, it felt like it was the pendulum was shifting.
Always
right?
it felt like a playoff game every single time. This is one of my favorite opponents when the Houston Rockets are going down to Houston, it's always an entertaining game with them.
Oh, and even at the Garden.
Thinking
And
back to the Marcus Smart moment with
oh yeah,
Harden.
there's many great moments of Rocket. So it's one of those. It's not a rivalry, but it's one of those weird matchups that have produced pretty good memories over time, for better or for worse. I will say, Celtics fans and Rockets fans included. But this is a good measuring stick for both teams, because last year it felt like, okay, well, actually, let's go back 2 years, 23-24. 23-24, that was the year the Rockets started to show, hey, we're not a complete bottom feeder anymore, right? We could maybe be in that play-in range. That's always the progression. You want to go from bottom feeder to play-in to the definitive playoff team to we're at the top of the conference.
Contender.
We've seen many teams do that, but before we can pull out many examples. The Rockets last year, they were on the second year of progression, right? They broke through from the bottom the year before. And when the Celtics faced them the year before, the Celtics were at the top and the Rockets were, we're kind of the play-in range. We're a little bit below it. We're kind of around it. And then this next year, right? Or last year, I should say, 24-25, felt like, okay, the Celtics are still at the top, but it feels like they're going down, feels like they're not as good, and it feels like the Rockets are one of those young teams that the Celtics struggle with, right? Teams like the Pacers, the Thunder, the Rockets last season, where the Celtics, these teams are too fast, too youthful against the slower, older Celtics team. Felt like the pendulum was starting to shift. It's like, these young teams look pretty good against the Celtics. And now all of a sudden, now ironically, this young Rockets team is led by a 37-year-old Kevin Durant. But
And the rotation around them isn't too youthful either.
well,
I
mean, they're the two
very well
main
balanced,
core
I will
young
say.
pieces, Amin Thompson, Şengün, they're our age. So you could say, they're 21, 22, 23 years old. That you could say, yes, they're still very young around them, but there are some, Fred VanVleet, Dorian Finney-Smith, when he comes back, thinking about those two guys on the injury report.
Clint Capella and Steven
Clint
Adams.
Capella, Steven Adams, Kevin Durant, got all those guys. Now, if Reed Shepherd plays more,
Jeff
just
Green,
saying.
former Celtic.
It's weird. If you actually average out all the ages, they might be, they might be
right down the middle.
Right. They might be a little bit older than people expect, but this was a younger team developing into a contender. And this season, it seems as if they should be amidst those teams. Still very early to tell. So far, so good for Houston when it comes to showing that they own the ability at times. Although none of these teams are solidified yet, this game could potentially be a measuring stick for both squads to actually find out where they are at this point in the season. Still very, very early, but as we go on further in time, we realize it's been 2 weeks. It's been half a month already. The NBA season's been going on essentially, and where one's at, right? We're kind of talking about in the standings. Are some of these records are definitely not indicative of where some of these teams are, but the Rockets and the Celtics playing each other. If the Celtics they can get a win tonight, that definitely puts more and more confidence into the fan base of the Celtics, along with just the general observing pool of the NBA, that the Celtics may still be, just saying, may still be a team to deal with. Maybe not as a contender, but as a playoff squad. The stock chart of the Celtics looks pretty wild right now. Obviously, it's very high last year. In the summer, it drops all the way down. And then there's this rejuvenated optimism that maybe. And then as the season starts 0-3, it goes, everybody. I mean, I still see people out on Twitter saying, oh, well, why do the, like they, I remember somebody had quotes over the 32-point Jaylen Brown performance, and they were going, you don't need to do this, bro. You don't need to do this. And in reference to, you don't need to do this. We're going to tank. Come on, we need to lose games. And this was after a win, after the Celtics improved to 500. But looking at where the Celtics are now and the Rockets, what exactly do you expect to see tonight in this particular matchup before we close out here?
Oh man, rebounding. This is one of the tallest lineups in the NBA right now. If the Houston Rockets are rolling out the lineup which is expected and which we have seen, with Thompson at the 1, KD running the 2, I believe They usually have Eason at the 3 and Jabari Smith at the 4 and Sengun at the 5. This is going to be the rebounding nightmares that people were talking about. Yesterday was Halloween. This is going to be the scary game when it comes to being down low in the paint. And if the Celtics centers are able to prove themselves against such talented players like the Houston Rockets have in their back or front court, it is a great testament to how the Celtics season is going to be going forward. However, the Houston Rockets are a very strong team that I would consider a Western Conference favorite and are a team that could end up matching up with the Oklahoma City Thunder and giving them a run for their money, but being able to really take it on each possession and withhold the Houston Rockets firing power and not allow them to withhold control of this game is going to be key. And this is going to be a challenging game for the Celtics to come out with a win with, but it's not impossible. It's just going to be a matter of if Jaylen Brown is able to contribute on both sides, if the Celtics aren't getting slaughtered in mismatches, and if they are able to keep up with Sengun and the rest of their cast on the boards and also being able to capitalize on that.
And of course, the Celtics will be taking on the Houston Rockets in a couple minutes here, technically. Just saying. Maybe 10, 11 minutes from now. But we will have you guys covered for that game after the game, as we do for every single Celtics game. But that's going to do it for us here on this version of the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. First of all, wait, Franco, do we got the music going here? Wait, hold up.
I got you.
Oh, we got it. Okay, we got it. I was making sure. I had my finger on. Was like, wait, I didn't hit it. I can't hear it though. I can't hear it, folks. But that's gonna do it here for us today on the Celtics Talk Weekly post game show. Of course, the Celtics walk away.
Pregame, yeah.
Walk away and /pregame, of course, /pregame. But the Celtics do walk away with a 109-108 victory over the Philadelphia 76ers in their first 2025 NBA Cup game. The Celtics grab a much-needed win, and a win that puts them now to 500 as they look to inch over the 500 mark tonight against the Houston Rockets at the Garden. We will have you guys covered for that one. Of course, do not forget to subscribe to the Celtics Talk Weekly YouTube channel, the Celtics Talk Weekly Instagram page, along with the Celtics.everyday Instagram page. Also go check out Celtics Nation Rise and all their great YouTube and Instagram content as well. But for us here tonight, I am your host, Seamus Zarlingo, alongside of me, Nick Franco, and of course, as we always say, go Celtics.